What if one day you wake up and realize the woman you trusted with your life, your love, your child, is the very one who's been slowly destroying your son behind closed doors? Would you forgive, or would you wait? And if you chose to wait, would you be strong enough to bring justice with your own hands? This is not fiction. This is real. A story of a father who disappeared, of a child trapped in his own home, and of a revenge plan crafted in silence, pain, and a vow to never let another child suffer like his did. The story begins in a quiet, small town. Liam, only 5 years old, had just lost his mother in a sudden accident. He now lived with his father, Richard, a man in finance. Quiet, serious, but devoted to his child. A few months later, Richard met a woman named Vanessa. She entered their lives softly, always smiling, always saying the right thing, as if she understood their pain. On their wedding day, Liam wore an old white shirt and clutched the worn teddy bear his late mother had given him. Vanessa knelt beside him, looked him in the eyes, and said, "From now on, I'll be your mommy. Your real mommy." But Liam's young eyes, too honest to lie, couldn't hide their hesitation. At first, Vanessa seemed perfect. She cleaned, cooked dinner, took Liam to school, always saying the things Richard needed to hear. He believed he had found the perfect wife. But when Richard left for work, everything started to shift. Vanessa's tone with Liam turned cold. She interrupted him, sighed in annoyance when he spilled water. Then came the scolding, the silent punishments, the strange rules. One evening, Liam accidentally dirtied the living room rug. Vanessa dragged him into the kitchen, shut the door, and whispered, "I'm not your mother. And don't you dare expect me to love you." From that day forward, Liam lived in two different worlds. To his father, Vanessa was the perfect stepmother. To the neighbors, a charming wife. But once the doors closed, Liam became invisible. He wasn't allowed to sit at the dinner table. Breakfast was a stale piece of bread. When he was sick, Vanessa handed him a tissue and said, "Crying won't get you sympathy." He started writing in a little notebook hidden under his pillow. The first line read, "If I disappear, would anyone remember me?" Richard started to notice a few strange things. Liam looked paler. He talked less. Every time he asked, Vanessa would smile sweetly and say, "He's just going through a phase. Boys are like that." She hugged Liam in front of him, but the boy flinched, subtle but real. Once Richard saw Liam crying alone, but Vanessa stepped in first, wrapping the moment with a perfect smile. Richard wanted to believe everything was fine, but a tiny crack had begun to form inside. That winter, Richard received an offer to work overseas, a position lasting at least 3 years. He hesitated, but Vanessa said, "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'll take care of Liam." I promise. Liam heard the news and went silent. At the airport, he handed his father a drawing, the two of them standing together in front of their home. Vanessa wasn't in the picture. Richard paused, then smiled. "I'll be back soon. You're the man of the house now, okay?" The moment Richard left, the door shut behind him, and for Liam, it wasn't just a door. It was the sound of a cage locking. Vanessa dropped the act. Liam was moved to sleep in the storage room. Mealtimes became floor-scrubbing sessions. During video calls, he was made to stand far from the camera and smile. He started counting days. Not toward a birthday, but for the rare moment when he wasn't punished. Those were good days. Liam learned to live without love. The 5-year-old slowly faded into a shadow. No friends, no toys, no one to listen. Vanessa banned him from laughing too loud, banned him from writing to his dad, banned him from keeping anything that belonged to his mother. One day, he secretly retrieved his old teddy bear from the trash. Vanessa found it. She didn't scream. She just looked him in the eye and said, "I told you. There's no room for the past in this house." Then she threw the bear into the fireplace. Liam stood there, eyes wide, unblinking. No tears. Just ash. Richard called home often in the beginning, but Liam was only allowed a few minutes. Vanessa always stood nearby, arms crossed, her eyes a warning. Whenever Liam tried to speak, she would interrupt. "He's doing great, honey. I'm teaching him independence." Richard smiled politely, but he started to notice. His son's smiles were growing rare. One day, he asked, "Liam, are you okay?" The boy stayed quiet. Then, after a pause, nodded. Vanessa smiled, and Liam looked down, as if swallowing the sky. Time passed. A year. Then 2. Richard got busier. He still sent gifts sometimes, but Vanessa always intercepted them. Liam grew quieter. In his journal he wrote, "I'm not angry at Dad. I just don't understand why he left me with her." One day, Vanessa accidentally left her phone unlocked. Liam opened the front camera, recorded his face, and whispered, "If anyone sees this, please tell Dad. I'm still here." It was the first and only time he asked for help. That night, Vanessa found the video. She wasn't angry. She didn't yell. She just deleted it. Then stood silently by Liam's bed, staring at him in the dark. "No one's going to believe you," she said softly. "Not even your father." Liam turned his face to the wall, barely breathing. Inside him, the last bit of light had just gone out. And then Richard stopped calling. His new job consumed him. The calls grew shorter, then vanished altogether. Vanessa started saying it out loud. "Your daddy forgot about you. And me? I'll make sure you never forget that." She didn't pretend anymore. Didn't need to act anymore. To Liam, she was no longer human. She was a mask. A monster. That knew how to smile. But what Liam didn't know was that far away, the father he thought had abandoned him was coming back. Liam turned 7 without a birthday. No cake, no gifts. No one said, "Happy birthday." He only heard one sentence from Vanessa. "If a child's not useful, what's the point of celebrating?" Every day for Liam started with the alarm at 5 a.m., when Vanessa would wake him up to clean. He wasn't allowed to go to school anymore. Vanessa said tuition was too expensive. But really, she just didn't want anyone knowing what went on behind closed doors. He became a servant in his own home, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, folding clothes. Mess up? No dinner. Do well? No praise. Vanessa installed cameras all over the house, not for safety, but to monitor Liam. Every night she'd review the footage, looking for the tiniest mistake. One night, Liam dozed off while folding laundry. She locked him in the storage room for 6 hours. No light, no water. When she opened the door, she simply asked, "Still want to be the good little boy?" By age 10, Vanessa changed tactics. Instead of physical punishment, she turned to psychological abuse. Every morning, she made Liam read a paper out loud. "I am a burden. No one loves me. I deserve to be punished." She banned him from looking in the mirror, from speaking to delivery men, from eating fresh food. "For adults only," she said. And slowly, Liam began to believe it. In his journal, he wrote, "I think I'm the reason Mom died. Maybe Dad left because I wasn't good enough." Each passing year, Liam spoke less. He no longer dreamed, no longer thought about the future. By now, Vanessa barely saw him as human. She commanded him like a machine. No eye contact, no name. Just that one, or it. One day, Vanessa threw a grand birthday party for herself. Liam was made to clean, wash glasses, and cook. No one asked who he was. He stood behind the door, watching guests arrive with flowers, wine, and cakes. And for the first time in years, a single tear fell. A few months later, Liam got sick. High fever, curled up in the corner of his room. Vanessa didn't take him to the hospital. She handed him an expired painkiller, then left for a 3-day golf trip. Liam lay alone. No one checked on him. No one knew he was burning with a 103-degree fever. No one knew he dreamed of his mother, holding him gently as he drifted in and out of sleep. It was the first and only time he dreamed of her in 6 years. When Liam turned 12, a new neighbor moved in. Her name was Clara. She was in her 60s and often saw Liam taking out the trash each morning. One day she smiled and asked, "What's your name, sweetheart?" Liam hesitated for a long while, then quietly said, "I am no one." Clara paused, looked at him carefully, his big sad eyes, full of unspoken pain. From that day on, she left an apple on her railing every morning. No questions, no comments, just silent presence. Clara started watching. She noticed Liam was never taken to school, never had friends over, never seen with any parents. One rainy day, she saw him take out the trash. No coat, shivering. She walked over, umbrella in hand. But Vanessa opened the door at that moment, her voice sharp. "He's fine. Don't worry." Clara knew instantly. This was not a normal household. She began writing in a notebook, documenting what she saw, and in quiet determination. Clara became the first to monitor Vanessa, even before Richard did. Liam was now 13, taller, thinner, eyes darker, heavier. Vanessa didn't need to hit him anymore, because Liam did it himself, in his thoughts. "I'm someone nobody needs. If I disappeared, it'd be easier for everyone." Clara saw this clearly. One day, she slipped a note with the apple. "If you ever need someone to talk to, just nod." The next morning, Liam nodded, slightly, but Clara saw, and for the first time, Liam was truly seen. Clara began leaving small notes with the apples. "You matter. You're not invisible. Someone cares about you." Liam saved every note, taping them under his bed. It became his secret place, the one thing Vanessa couldn't take. Sometimes he smiled while reading the handwritten words, a brief smile, but real. And slowly, his heart began to beat again, faint, but alive. Vanessa grew suspicious. She noticed Liam wasn't as afraid as before. He moved slower, didn't flinch when she approached. One day, she searched his room and found one of Clara's notes. Anger flashed in her eyes, but she smiled. "So, it's that nosy old neighbor." Vanessa installed a camera near Liam's window, but Clara wasn't naive either. She made a call to the only other person who had ever loved Liam as much as she did, Richard. That call was the first light in nearly 10 years. Richard heard Clara's voice and froze for a moment. Then he sprang up, asking, "My son, he's alive, right? He's okay?" Clara simply said, "He's alive, but I wouldn't call it living." That night, Richard didn't sleep. He reopened every old photo of Liam, rewatched his 5th birthday video, and in the silence, placed his hand over his heart, the one that thought it had lost his son forever. The next morning, Richard booked a flight home, quietly. No warnings. He wore his old coat, the one Liam once drew in that picture years ago. No one knew that the father they thought was long gone was on his way back, not to seek answers, but to bring justice. And from that moment on, the story wasn't just about pain anymore, but about the return of love and reckoning. Richard landed at the airport on a rainy morning. No one knew he was back. No calls, no warnings. He rented a small apartment across from the old neighborhood, where Vanessa and Liam still lived. From his window, he saw Liam, now a teenager, taller, thinner, eyes dulled. Richard froze. This boy no longer looked like the child he once knew, but in those eyes, he was still his son. Richard began observing. Every morning, Liam took out the trash, swept the yard. No friends, no laughter. Richard took photos, recorded moments. He asked Clara to place a small recorder near the fence, to hear how Vanessa spoke when no one was watching. One day, He heard this. "You should be grateful I feed you. Nobody needs you." Richard clenched his fist, but he didn't step out. Not yet. Richard began investigating. He hired an old friend, a private investigator, to dig into Vanessa's finances, Liam's medical records, security cameras, utility bills, every little thing. The truth unraveled. Vanessa had used Richard's money to buy property under her name. Liam hadn't been to a hospital or school in 6 years. Neighbors heard crying but never stepped in. Each report felt like a knife to the chest. But Richard stayed silent, collecting every cut as a weapon. Richard knew. He couldn't just show up and take his son. Vanessa would twist the story, play the victim, like she always had. He needed something undeniable, the truth, exposed publicly. So he built a plan. It started with an invitation to a dinner party celebrating Richard's return. Clara would deliver it. The guest list? Everyone who believed Vanessa was an angel, neighbors, friends, even the family lawyer. Vanessa accepted immediately. No suspicion. She dressed up in her finest, painted her face carefully. She thought, Richard came back to reconcile. He finally realized he can't live without me, she believed. She forced Liam into a suit, the first time in years. Not out of care, but to show him off. Like a prop in her perfect painting. Liam stared into the mirror, seeing someone unfamiliar. He didn't know. Something very different was coming. The dinner was hosted at a luxurious restaurant. Warm lights, soft music. Guests congratulating Richard. Vanessa smiled. Liam stood behind, silent. Richard shook hands, looked at Vanessa like he still cared. She had no idea. Every step she took, every word she spoke, was being recorded. Hidden cameras, microphones under the table, and in a room next door, a screen showed everything live. To a lawyer, a police officer, and an independent media outlet. When it was time for Richard to give a toast, he looked straight at Vanessa and said, "Thank you for taking care of Liam all these years." She smiled proudly. "Of course. I've always loved him like my own." He nodded, then turned toward the big screen behind him and said one line. "Are you sure about that?" The image changed. Audio played of her calling Liam a burden. The room fell silent. Screams, a boy's cries, footage from hidden cameras inside the house. The room froze. Some put down their glasses. Others whispered, "My God." Vanessa stood paralyzed, her face pale, lips trembling, hands clenched. She tried to smile, to say, "That's edited. It's not real." But at that moment, the lawyer stepped in. The police followed. A reporter raised her camera. There was no escape. Vanessa was held in place at the center of the dining room. Richard didn't yell. He simply stood still, watching the woman he once called wife now tremble in public disgrace. Liam stood in the corner, eyes wide in shock. He didn't understand. Couldn't believe it was real. When an officer asked, "Did she ever hurt you?" Liam stayed silent. Then slowly, he rolled up his sleeve, revealing faint bruises on his wrist. No words, but enough to say everything. The officers read Vanessa her rights. She screamed, fought back. "No, I didn't do anything. He set me up. It's all lies." No one looked at her anymore. All eyes turned to Liam, the boy who was no longer a shadow. Clara stepped forward, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. Richard walked slowly toward him, then stopped. Father and son locked eyes. Time froze between them, one gaze heavy with regret, the other scarred by pain. Richard knelt down, didn't speak. He opened his palm. Inside was the old watch he once gave Liam. Liam froze, then slowly pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, written in a child's hand. "If you're still alive, please come back for me." Neither said a word. They just embraced. Tightly. For the first time in nearly a decade, 2 lost heartbeats found their rhythm again. Vanessa was escorted out. No one waved. No one defended her. People looked away, heads down. No one believed her good woman mask anymore. Liam watched her leave, then lowered his head. Not in fear, but in release. Because now, he wasn't a victim anymore. Richard wrapped a coat over his son's shoulders. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He only said, "From now on, you don't have to be strong alone." Liam nodded, and for the first time in his life, someone stood up for him. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed, "Stepmother abuses child for 10 years, exposed at luxury dinner." Social media erupted. People dug up Vanessa's charity speeches, her parenting advice articles. Every word she once said, now a punchline. Neighbors were stunned. Many had once called her the perfect woman. Now they looked at each other, ashamed, awkward, and had no idea what to say to Liam. The police launched a full investigation. The hidden cameras Richard had installed now served as key evidence. Vanessa faced 6 charges: child abuse, unlawful confinement, financial fraud, false reporting, educational neglect, custodial misconduct. When asked, "Do you have anything to say?" Vanessa looked straight into the camera, and for the first time, said nothing. Meanwhile, Richard and Liam moved in with Clara, the woman who changed everything. But Liam didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He just sat by the window every night. Richard asked, "What do you want me to do?" Liam replied, "You don't have to say anything, just sit with me." And so, each night, Richard sat silently beside his son, just to show, this time, he wasn't going anywhere. One afternoon, Clara found Liam rewriting old journal entries. He was copying the line he wrote at age 6. "If I disappeared, would anyone remember me?" Clara asked, "Do you believe now that someone remembers you?" Liam nodded, slowly but surely. He tore the old page, threw it in the fire, and for the first time he said out loud, "I'm still here." Richard decided to take Liam to therapy, not to fix him immediately, but to show, you have the right to recover, to be fragile, and to be human. At the first session, Liam said nothing, just stared at the ceiling, counting raindrops on the glass. But in the third session he asked, "Do you think I'm a burden?" Richard cried. Not loudly, just held his son's hand, and said for the first time, "No. You're the reason I'm still alive." Liam began writing again, but not a journal of pain anymore. It was his first book. Tentative title, "The Shadow Behind the Door and What It Saw." He wrote about his childhood, not in anger, but as a survivor, someone no longer afraid to remember. Richard read each page, each night. He didn't correct spelling, didn't suggest edits. He just wrote one line, "You wrote the truth, and that truth will help others live." Court day. Vanessa wore a black suit, no lipstick, no smile. On the defendant's bench, no sign of the perfect woman. Just a pale face, looking down, silent. Liam sat in the witness seat, white shirt, fingers clenched together, slight tremble. The judge asked, "Do you feel strong enough to speak today?" Liam looked at his father. Richard nodded, no pressure, just quiet trust. Liam stood. "Yes, I do." Liam didn't cry. He spoke every detail, calmly, steadily, as if reading from a book that no longer hurt him. The nights in the cold storage, the birthday that never came, Vanessa's words, "Nobody needs you." The courtroom was still. Only the sound of the stenographer's keys echoed. Vanessa never looked at him. She stared at her shoes. Maybe for the first time, she truly felt the weight of what she'd done. The jury took just 2 hours to decide. All 6 charges, guilty. Vanessa was sentenced to 18 years in prison. No bail, no parole. Richard didn't clap, didn't smile. He just held his son's hand tighter. Clara wept, not out of sorrow, but because finally Justice had arrived. On time. Liam walked out of the courtroom. He didn't feel free yet, but he felt real. For the first time, people had listened and believed him. On the way home, Liam stared out the window. A little boy played with his mom in the park. Liam didn't feel envy. He just saw peace. Richard asked, "Where do you want to go?" Liam answered, "I want to go to school." "I've never been," Clara cried. Richard smiled softly. "Then we'll start tomorrow." And Liam nodded. No fear this time. He knew every step forward now wouldn't be walked alone. A week later, his first school day. Liam wore a uniform, a bit too big, but he liked it. The other students looked at him curiously, but Liam smiled first. He didn't say, "I'm fine." Didn't pretend to be tough. He simply said, "I'm starting over." At recess, a girl asked, "Are you new?" Liam nodded. "Yeah, my name is Liam." And for the first time, he said his name without fear. At a press conference, a reporter asked Richard, "What kept you going, after almost 10 years?" He looked at Liam, then replied, "Because when your child disappears, you don't stop until you bring them back." Liam stood beside him, no longer holding his father's hand. He stood tall, confident. Because now, he knew who he was. No longer abandoned. No longer a shadow, but a survivor. Someone who walked out of hell and never looked back. Liam began attending school regularly. He didn't fit in right away, but that was okay. He learned slowly, held his pencil differently, didn't know team games, but he was patient, and others were patient with him. Clara cooked dinner each evening. Richard was always home on time. Their first family meal, just the three of them, but it was warm and real. One day, Liam asked his father, "Were you scared? Coming back?" Richard smiled. "Of course, but I was more scared of losing you." Liam thought for a moment, then said, "I'm scared too, but I'm tired of being scared." And he smiled. The first smile without bitterness. It wasn't big, it wasn't bright, but it was truly Liam's. The town began to change. The local school hosted a talk on emotional abuse. The title was, "Hearing What No One Says." Liam didn't speak, but he sat in the front row, next to his father and Clara. After the talk, a student approached and whispered, "I used to be like you, but I'm not scared anymore." Liam nodded. "Me too." One night, Richard saw Liam writing late. He asked, "What are you writing?" Liam answered, "The last chapter. But this one isn't about the past. It's about the father who came back." Richard said nothing more. He just stepped closer and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "That chapter will be the most beautiful one you ever write." Clara grew older, but every morning she still made tea for Liam. She called it bravery tea, because she said, "You don't need to be the strongest, just brave enough to take one more step." Liam kept every note she ever wrote, in a small box labeled, "Things That Kept Me Alive." A year later, Liam gave a speech at the graduation of a youth recovery program. "I once believed I was a burden. I once thought I didn't deserve to live. But now I know. I wasn't wrong. I was just treated wrong." The room erupted in applause. Not out of pity, but out of respect. Vanessa remained in prison. No visitors. Liam didn't hate her. He wrote one letter, never sent, "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I no longer want to carry you with me." He folded it. Burned it. At that moment, far away, Vanessa looked out her cell window, and for reasons unknown, her heart raced for a few seconds. Liam was now 15. No longer a victim. He was a narrator, a survivor, a forgiver. One morning he placed his hand over the first page of his printed book, dedicated to the father who returned, and the grandmother who never gave up. The book's title, I am not invisible. When someone asked Liam, "How did you survive all that?" he simply smiled. With real love, with silent listening, and with a truth that didn't need to shout. It just needed to stand still. One afternoon, Liam went to the beach with Richard and Clara. For the first time in years, all three laughed loudly. The wind blew wild, tossing Liam's hair. He didn't fix it, didn't hide. He just closed his eyes and felt. Richard snapped a photo, a beautiful one. No filters, no edits. Just a moment where a child once buried was living in real light. In child abuse cases, the most dangerous thing isn't the bruise. It's the prolonged silence. Dr. Marianne Cole, family psychologist. She said, "Some children don't scream, they don't fight, but they remember, and they hurt. Every day, for years." Liam's story isn't just about an evil stepmother. It's about the children no one hears. If we don't listen, if we don't believe, then we enable cruelty without even lifting a finger. Liam walked across the schoolyard. He saw a younger boy, sitting alone in the corner, hunched over, arms hugging his backpack. Liam walked over, sat beside him. No questions, no pressure, just presence.